Good afternoon. How are you? Well, it's an overcast day. It's a little chilly, not as chilly as it's going to be. Thomas Jefferson says the temperature is 52 degrees. Humidity is 49%. It does look like it could be rain, although clouds are high. And the wind is a breezy 2.1 miles an hour. I think we're still in the grips of the sex scandal surrounding President Trump, his long ago friend Epstein, and a collection of characters, all of whom are more interested in sex and predatory offenses than they are in their own good name or the proper way to minister to youth by example than by abuse. Maxwell, who is in prison right now, in a comfortable prison that nobody with a sentence like hers would have, and she was Epstein's favorite groomer of the victims, if you will, is preparing a petition for commutation. Now, she didn't announce that, but it was found out in emails between her and counsel, and there's a whole dispute about that. But it gives you an idea that when Trump says, I don't know what I would do, he knows what he would do. And she's filling that out so that she can take advantage of the next break, if you will, in the misconduct by Trump that's disclosed involving Epstein. And Representative Green is kind of a mystery to me, and I don't credit her either with great powers of deception or any particular brain power, and she may have a clumsy political route that she's following. And you always make a mistake when you rely on your enemies when they say something intelligent and the next thing they say is horrible. But she claims that Trump's approach here is a huge miscalculation. And she kind of says, which feels political to me, that Trump should just let it all go. It would clear him, which is a bogus message to conceal what you really believe, that if this stuff is disclosed, Trump will be at the center of it. And she may be in a position to know it more than other members of her caucus. And it is the fact that a large bunch of communications involving Trump and Epstein was revealed by the Republicans on the same committee that the Democrats released some documents. So there is that, what she may know. Trump, of course, is saying publicly he prefers that everybody look at Bill Clinton or Reid Hoffman or Larry Summers and their connections to Epstein. And what's his rationale? I have a country to run. I don't have time to defend myself from true accusations supported by documents and witnesses. Epstein apparently said in one of the communications that he was the one able to take Trump down. Well, I don't think they're talking about just a wrestling match. I think they're talking about the souring of their relationship, Trump not helping him, and Trump having exposure himself. It doesn't make sense otherwise. Now, of course, Epstein refers to Trump as borderline insane, effing crazy. And so you get a sense that in these 20,000 pages that the Republicans had, Green and others are of the view, I think it's time that we vote for this resolution for the rest of the Epstein files, because they're going to come out sooner or later. And what we've seen from what the Republicans had on the House committee is enough to give us pause. So MAGA is not happy. Republicans in the caucus are not happy. Speaker Johnson is going to move up the vote sometime next week and get it over. Now, Mondays in the Congress are usually days of travel for the members, and the first real business is on Tuesday. And on a Monday evening, for example, when some come in, they put matters on the calendar that are basically consented to. There's no issue. And so there may be two people in the well of the House of Representatives. These bills will come up, and only if someone says, I want a quorum call, and people come out, and they're going to have a vote. So you would not risk a bill that was going to do that on a Monday, and I don't think that's what they'll do. So Tuesday or Wednesday would be my guess. But this is Congress, so somebody may have some other idea. Trump may go off, and what will he do? He may cause a war down with Venezuela. So we think of that instead of Epstein. Over at the FCC, the chair wants to use its news distortion policy. For example, they don't like the way the Garcia matter was handled. You may remember he was the one who was never to go to Ecuador and did, and then was brought back, and then they charged him, and they didn't like the coverage that the story got. And so this distortion of the news, if you will, is another way to muzzle Democrats over Republicans, because nobody's talking about doing that to the Republicans. And in truth, it's a policy that shouldn't exist in the FCC. They don't have no business telling America what speech is permissible and what's not. And then also to get us to pay attention, Trump, who is the head of the Kennedy Center, he wants to kick art out of the Kennedy Center so that, and we're talking about actual programs scheduled in this period coming up, for a variety of productions that people have paid for and expect to be coming to the Kennedy Center to see, and they're paying for it. But Trump is prepared to allow the World Cup to have the run of the place for several days for free. Now, I guess it's the best way he can be insulting to liberals that might embrace a good show, either a more popular one, a musical, say, a dance, an opera. I wonder if he has ever attended any of those things. Trump is a limited man in so many ways, and the limitations on his intelligence are legion. And so he wants to take a spray can to the Kennedy Center. He just can't stand the fact nor understand how some people took risks in life for what they believed and didn't always expect to take a paycheck away from the meeting, or bags of cash, or name being used in ways that are favorable. Another one that's on the calendar, which I think is to have us think about things other than Epstein and what Trump did or didn't do and with whom and why, is they think there should be less THC for hemp. Another way to talk about marijuana. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Now, I do think when the economy has problems and we're concerned about depression, inflation is up, etc., that we should be careful about how we change the rules. And he can't just say it and change the rule. But he's doing that. It's going to upset a whole industry. And anybody who's ever counseled with, for, or been involved in any decent business, and I mean anything from selling Kool-Aid on the corner up, there are things you have to know and you can rely on. Maybe for Kool-Aid, my parents are going to let me use the sidewalk or the front driveway. But as soon as you get out of that and you're selling widgets in boxes in retail stores, and you're making warranties, and you're filing taxes, and you're paying salaries. You're in a different world. Now, Trump has always run away from his obligations. He doesn't think about these things. He always increases his profit line by stiffing people who make his profit line possible. And so he adds that for controversy, in my opinion. The USDA fired an employee for reporting about SNAP funding, where it would be, how it would be distributed and stuff like that. You can't even murmur a critical word about these assholes without them doing something like that. And the Injustice Department, they're setting themselves to look at that new redistricted map from Proposition 50 that passed the other day in California. Nobody's looking at, in the Justice Department is looking at the seats that were misdirected, redirected, reconstructed for the advantage of Republicans in Texas and elsewhere. And then there is this ray of, I don't know how you describe it. It's disowning an action that was so wrong and so obvious that they're going to pass a bill striking it from the government back to work bill. And what is it? It's to award $500,000 to pay in connection with subpoenas for the telephone records of the 7 Democrats and 1 independent. And they're going to strike that from the deal. So there's a lot going on, all offensive. I don't know how much will be sustained, but it seems to me that Trump has lost it. Lost his shit. He has no idea how to deal with this because he doesn't understand when the fortune turns against you, when the ring turns downward, is there an escape? And so he's thrashing around and hurting whomever he can to distract us from what he was doing. Let's look at Clinton. Let's worry about what I'm going to do in Venezuela, those kinds of things. Finally, I have a private note. It's not so private, but it's different than the parade of horrors that we deal with whenever we invoke the term Trump or his corrupt minion. Long ago, I supported Jesse Jackson, who was running for president. In 1984, when I ran for Congress, he helped me win a primary by coming into the Congressional district in Northern Virginia. And I won the primary so I could run in the general election. Then, years later, I ran into Jesse in D.C. at a function. And he asked me what I was doing. I told him. And I said, "What are you doing, Jesse?" And he got all upset. He says, "You don't know? I'm running for president." I said, "Well, good for you, Jesse." And he got a kick out of that because I said, of course I knew he was running. He said, "What are you doing for me?" I said, "Nobody asked." So he made me the co-chair of his campaign in Virginia. And devil if we didn't win the damn primary and a number of other states. And so I went to the convention in Atlanta that year as a Jesse Jackson delegate. Every person in public life can be criticized for something. But I saw things because I was with Jesse of how some people in the south side of the state treated Jesse. And I had some conservative Republicans in the state say if I ever was going to run again, I should be careful. Now, they had been upset that I received support from Ted Kennedy and the Kennedy family. And so this wasn't new to me. And I said things like, so on the promise of you helping me, perhaps in the future, I should renege on a person who's actually helped me in the past. Sorry, I'm not buying it. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is Jesse's not on the ballot anywhere. And he hasn't been speaking that much. But he has so loved politics and done so much good that some would discount. And he found an honesty in advocating for unity. He talked about a quilt. He talked about lifting all boats. He talked about a whole variety of steps that I think would bring us together, and he did it well. And he discouraged talking about revenge and getting even in public proceedings. And so he's in the hospital with a neurodegenerative condition, and apparently it's pretty painful, and I don't think the prognosis, well, if anything, at an advanced age, is without peril. So there's no way to give odds on it, but I hope Jesse comes out of it. He has a family that care, and no doubt that gives him hope and such health as he can have. So that's what I got today, and apparently neither rain nor darkness is going to screw up this walk. So I say good evening to you from the Cathedral of Trees. All the best. Bye-bye.